Hi readers, welcome to Novels with Nat. Today is going to be a TBR video, one of my favorite videos to film, and it's going to actually be our second last TBR of 2025. So let's talk about all of the 10 books that I'm hoping to read in the month of November. So first of all, if you are new here or if you're just happening to be stumbling upon this video, please subscribe. I make all kinds of bookish content. I just like talking about books. So if you're into talking about books or listening to people talk about books, subscribe to this channel. That would be amazing. Um, I always set my TBR every month at 10 books. And then, of course, that sometimes I go over it, sometimes under it, but I feel like 10 is a good number for me to choose from every month. I don't always stick to my TBR exactly, but I stick fairly close to it. I always read at least half of the books on my TBR for the most part. So let's talk about the 10 that I've chosen for this month. I feel like this month's TBR is just a complete mix of books, to be honest. Um, in the summer, I was really focused on like summary reads, summary thrillers. And then in September, I always really like to read a lot of dark academia. And then coming out of October, where I really focus on horror books and like haunted house stories. And now in November, I just feel like throwing anything on my TBR that is calling out to me. There is no theme, there is no specific vibe that I'm going for. It's just whatever sounded good, whatever is coming out, and whatever I've got holds coming in from my library. So this is a complete mixed bag. So it should be a good reading month because we've got a lot of variety. So let's talk about the 10 books that I have chosen. This first one is one that I'm carrying over from October, which I didn't get around to. I was on hold at the library, but my hold didn't come in yet for the audiobook, and so I'm going to be reading it in November, hopefully. I'm first in line for the audio on Libby, and it is The Making of Jackson Parrish. This is a prequel novella to The Last Mrs. Parrish, which is, again, one of my favorite thrillers of all time. I've said it so many times on this channel, but it is, and so I'm very excited to read this prequel. I think it's only available on audio, so I'll be listening to this one, but again, carrying it over from last month, hopefully I can get to it in this month. I do have another novella that I would like to read this month, and this one is by Lucinda Berry. This one's called This Is a Safe Place, I believe. I don't know too much about it. I do enjoy Lucinda Berry's books. They're kind of like popcorn thriller, kind of Frida McFadden style, but I think they're a little bit more well developed. They have a little bit more thought behind them, and they're often a little bit darker. So I do enjoy her books, and so I thought, you know what, she's coming out with a new novella. I will read this one. It should be quick. This one I think is possibly also an audio only. I could be wrong, but I'm on hold for the audio through my library, so I'll be listening to this one as well. It's pretty short. I think it's like 3 or 4 hours, the audio, so it should be a quick read or listen. All right, I just noticed now that I do have quite a bit of horror on my TBR for November, so I must still be in the mood for horror books coming out of October. So let's talk about some of the horror first. So this first one is called Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This one I don't own physically. I'm going to pick it up from my library. But I heard another creator on BookTube talking about this book and said that they really enjoyed it and would recommend it. And so when I looked up the synopsis, it sounded really good. So that's about as deep as it goes. I heard someone say it was good, sounded good, so I put my name on hold at the library, and I just got a notice that it is currently in transit to my local branch. So I'm excited to read it. I think this one is also just about 200 pages, so it should also be a pretty quick read. And we'll see. I'm really trying to branch out when it comes to horror, try some new authors. I'm not a huge horror reader. I do read horror pretty regularly, but it's not my main genre. So I'm definitely trying to dip my toes into different types of horror, different authors, and just see what I like and try to branch out. So there's that one. If you have read this one, please let me know in the comments what your thoughts were. I'd be very curious to know. And then another horror I would like to get to this month is The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. I have never read from this author either, but I saw this one at a used book sale. I talked about it a bit in a pretty recent book haul video that I posted. I'll link that down below if you're interested. I went to some free little libraries and then did a little haul at the end, and this was one of the books that I picked up. This one I was intrigued, first of all, by the cover. I think it's really interesting. I also love any kind of like haunted house, spooky house type of story, so this definitely fits that bill. I think this is a little bit of a historical horror thriller type of book. This one just gives me like kind of like a cozy vibe. I'm excited to read this one in November. I think it'll be the perfect atmosphere for it. And again, excited to try a new to me author. And then the last horror book that I have on my TBR is The September House. Now, would this book have been good to read in September? Yeah, probably. But I want to read it and I don't want to wait another 10 months to get around to it. So we're going to be reading The September House in November, but it's fine. This book, again, is like a haunted house story. I think it's about a house where it has some kind of like a curse, and every year in September, the walls bleed. Um, I originally, when I heard about this book, wasn't super intrigued, but the more time has gone on, I've heard people talking about it and have really enjoyed it and have been reading it in spooky season. So I recently, about a week ago, ended up stumbling upon a copy at a used book sale, and I decided to pick it up. I thought, now is the time. For a couple of dollars, I'll definitely give it a shot. I am intrigued for sure, and again, this one I also love the cover. It's also, I just noticed, blurbed on the front by Grady Hendrix, who I do really enjoy. He says, just when you thought you'd seen everything a haunted house novel could do, this book comes along. All right, and the next one on my TBR was one that I put on hold at my library many months ago, actually, and it just came in, and I just got a notification that it's in, so I added it to my TBR. That's kind of how my TBR works a lot of the times, is it's just whatever holds I have at the library that happened to trickle in at that time. That's kind of what goes on my TBR, and then I fill in the gaps with books from my physical TBR. So this was the one that happened to come in this month, so we'll be reading it this month, and it is Dead Med by Frida McFadden. Um, if you've been watching my channel, you'll know that Frida McFadden is an author that I don't typically love, but I am working my way through her backlist. I've got about 5 books left to go to have completed all of her books. They're always just quick reads, fast-paced popcorn thrillers. They're nothing groundbreaking, nothing I would really recommend, but they are a palate cleanser, and I do like to sprinkle in some of her books here and there. So this one I think is one of her very first thrillers. So I'm finally getting around to it, and I'm excited to finish her entire backlist so that I can do an author ranking video, so that hopefully I can get done early next year. Okay, next up we have a thriller that I've been hearing amazing things about, and it is The Drowning Woman by Robin Harding. This one I honestly am a little bit nervous to read, only because I read a Robin Harding book last month, or no, it was 2 months ago in September, and it was a 1 star. It was one of my worst books of 2025. I absolutely hated it. It was called, I think, The Perfect Family. Um, it was just really bad. And I read a lot of thrillers and I rarely give them 1 star, but that one I just really disliked. And so I was kind of put off from picking up the other Robin Harding books on my TBR that I own physically. But I just keep hearing so many positive things about this one in particular. Everyone seems to love The Drowning Woman. And so I'm going into it with kind of low expectations given the experience I had with the last Robin Harding book, but I am hopeful. And so fingers crossed I enjoy it. I think this one, for some reason, is more of like a summer thriller. Yeah, a secluded spot by the beach. So definitely out of season. While I like to read thrillers and books in general in the season that they take place in, sometimes I just can't wait for that season to come around again. So I'm going to be reading a more summery thriller in the fall, but that is totally fine. I'm excited to give this author another shot. And then this next book is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but the premise just sounds so interesting to me, so I am excited to read it. I just picked it up yesterday, actually, at a library sale. All of these books, or a lot of them, I picked up this last week. There was a lot of used book sales near me, so I have collected them all up, and I sort of picked from them for my TBR for November. And I'm also going to be filming a pretty big book haul coming up, so look out for that video as well, to be coming out this month. But the book that I'm talking about is Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. This book, I'm not sure if this is like a different cover, but this is not the cover that I have seen around. The one I've seen is like a picture, like a outline of like a girl holding a little animal, maybe a bunny, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, it must be a bunny because there's bunnies on this cover. So yeah, but I don't know why they had this cover, so I went for this. So in this book, we're basically following a main character who ends up going to a Catholic church, and she had seen an ad in a flyer for free therapy. But when she gets there, it turns out that they thought that she was there for a job interview, and so she ends up getting this job. But she feels kind of out of place because she is an atheist and she's also queer, and so we're following her and her journey in this situation, I guess. That's the extent of what I know about it. It says blending warmth, deadpan humor, and pitch perfect observations about the human condition. So I think this book is going to be hopefully a little bit funny, a little bit like emotional. I just like these kind of stories sprinkled in every once in a while. I don't read a ton of books like this. I tend to stick to more horror and thriller books, but I'm excited to get to this one. This one's also on the shorter side, I think. It's at about 240 pages. So I have quite a few books on my TBR this month that are fairly short. So we'll see how many of them I get through. Maybe all of them. I can always be hopeful. All right, two more books to talk about. This one is The Appeal by Janice Hallett. This author writes all of her books in sort of mixed media. I think it's like email messages, text messages, news articles, things like that. And you're kind of like solving the mystery through this mixed media. And so I have always wanted to pick up a book by this author, but I just have never gotten around to it. And like I said, I went to a used book sale this week and there was a copy there. So I ended up grabbing it. Actually, no, this one I got at a thrift store this week. I did a lot of book shopping this week. So I'm getting it confused where I picked up each book. But all of these books that I'm talking about, I believe were all purchased secondhand, which I try to buy the majority of my books secondhand. So this one, I think we're following a theater group. And then somebody ends up being unalived, and then we're trying to follow the murder mystery that's unraveling as the lawyers sort of sift through the emails, messages, and letters from the suspects. So this one I'm hoping is good. I have read one other mixed media book. Well, I tried to read it. I ended up DNFing it, and it was what was it called? I honestly can't even remember what it's called. I'll put a picture up. But I tried reading it and I just couldn't get into it. I didn't love the I felt like there was just so many characters, and in a mixed media type of story, it was hard for me to keep them straight. That's what I remember from my reading experience with that. So I did DNF it fairly quickly. So I'm hoping I like this one more. We will see. All right, last book is The House in the Cerulean Sea. This one, I honestly do not know very much about. I feel like I say that over and over. I just see books, I'll read the premise, I'll add them to my TBR, and then I sort of forget what they're about. And then when I go back to my TBR to choose books, I'll just kind of grab them and I have to remind myself what it was about. Um, this one I think is fantasy. It says Linus is a by-the-book caseworker in the department in charge of magical youth. At 40, he lives in a tiny house with a devious cat and his old records for company, but his quiet life is about to change. Linus is summoned by extremely upper management and given a curious and highly classified assignment. Travel to an orphanage on a distant island and determine whether 6 dangerous magical children are so dangerous, in fact, that they're likely to bring about the end of days. When Linus arrives at that strangest of islands, he's greeted by a series of mysterious figures, the greatest mystery of which is Arthur, the master of the orphanage. As Linus and Arthur grow closer, Linus discovers the master would do anything to keep the children safe, even if it means the world has to burn. Or worse, his secrets come to light. It says, a magical island, a dangerous task, a burning secret. Doesn't that just sound so good? I feel like everyone has already read this book. This came out, I think, about 5 years ago, maybe like 2020. And I didn't initially pick it up because I don't tend to read fantasy. And so I think in my mind, I just tell myself, like, okay, that's a fantasy book. You're not going to like it. But I think I more and more need to read the synopsis of books and decide based off of that, because the synopsis of this sounds so good. Similar to like last month, I had a 5-star fantasy book. It was Catabasis. I saw that it was fantasy, of course, and so I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to like it. Read the synopsis, thought it sounded so good, read the book, gave it 5 stars. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case with this, and I'm hoping to keep more of an open mind moving forward with the sort of genres that I'm reading and branching out and sort of dipping my toes in when it comes to books that I know are outside of my comfort zone, but that sound particularly interesting to me. So hopefully this is a case like that, and hopefully I love it, but we will see. All right, so those are the 10 books that I have chosen to prioritize in the month of November. I don't always stick to it 100%, but I'm going to try to stay fairly close to this list. I'm going to put these books out on a shelf that I have right on the side here, and they will be right in my line of vision, and hopefully I will be reading from them this month. Keep an eye out. Very soon I'll be posting my wrap-up for the month of October, and at the end of my wrap-ups, I always try to put in my TBR that I had set for the month and see how many of the 10 I actually did end up reading. So keep an eye out for that video. Let me know in the comments also what is on your TBR for the month of November. What are you trying to prioritize? What are you excited to read? Let me know. Also, you can let me know if you have read any of the 10 books that I talked about, and let me know what you thought of it. What did you rate it? Would you recommend it? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, leave a comment, all of those things. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in another one very soon. Bye.